Hello friends, welcome to my video. Today I am going to talk about using keyword in C Sharp. We'll learn what using keyword in C Sharp is and which context it can be used in a program. We'll discuss all using concepts like using directives, using statements and using declaration with examples. And finally, we'll talk about its guidelines and benefits associated with them. I'm sure you will be benefited from this video in one way or other. So before we get started, just a quick reminder to subscribe my channel, hit the red button and don't forget to click on the little bell icon. That way you will be notified every time I upload a new video. Okay, without any further delay, let's get started. Using directive in C Sharp. Using directive is used mainly in two use cases in C Sharp. Number one, to import types defined in other namespace. Okay, let's suppose I am writing my own program in C Sharp and we want to use text related functionality in our program. In that case, we need to import system.txt namespace in our program at the top and use throughout that in a program file. This import is done by using directive. That's why I wrote using system.txt semicolon. We can also use modifier with using directive for import. There are mainly two: using a static directive, global using directive. Using a static directive, which was introduced in C Sharp 6.0, it enables us to import a static member of types directly into the scope. In other words, we can include a static class by using a static similar to a namespace. For example, using a static system.math. Once we imported system.math type, we can directly use its static method like sqrt5 instead of system.math.sqrt5. So it's concise, right? We don't need to include whole type and then we need to call the method. Second, global using directive was introduced in C Sharp 10. And for example, global using system.text. Once we write, what does it mean is we are importing system.text namespace in one file. One can use it in different class file throughout the project without importing in each and every file. That's the benefit of global using that. Anyway, I have made a detailed video on this concept. You'll see link somewhere upper right corner, and also I have given my video link in description section of this video. You may check out later. Now we'll see other use case of using directive. Number 2, create an alias for a namespace of a type. Okay, let's try to understand with the help of examples. Okay, so here I wrote a program. At the top, I have imported system namespace. And in next statement, I have used using directive for creating an alias SB for a type system.text.string builder so that I can use this SB alias instead of writing system.text.string builder throughout the program wherever it is needed. So that's what I have written using SB is equal to system.text.string builder. Okay, so there is a class program that has a main method. In that main method, I have written where obj SB is equal to new SB. So what I am doing over here, I am creating an instance of the string builder using alias. So that's what I wrote where obj SB is equal to new SB. Then I have called its append method and appending some string to it. So that's what I wrote objsb.append demo, objsb.append using directive for creating an alias for a type. And finally, I am printing into this console window. And that's what I wrote console.writeline objsb. The output, if you see over here, demo using directive for creating an alias for a type. Okay, let's switch to Visual Studio and see all these things in action. Okay, so here we are on Visual Studio. Here we are going to see the demo of the using directive. See the first line over here, I have written using system. I have imported system namespace using directive. But I have written using system. This next statement I have written using SB is equal to system.text string. So that's the way we are going to create an alias for a imported type, right? So this is the type system.text string builder and I have created an alias for it SB, right? In the third line of a statement, I have written using a static system.console. So basically, I have used using a static directive over here, right? Okay, so there is a class program that has main method. In this main method, I have written where obj SB is equal to new SB. Basically, I am creating a string builder class with the help of alias over here. That's what I have written where obj SB is equal to new SB. Okay, and then in the next statement, I have used append method of this string builder class. So I have written obj sb.append and we are adding this string to it, demo, right? In the next statement also I have used append method. In this append method I have passed using directive for creating an alias for a type, right? And if you notice, I have just written writeline instead of console.writeline. Why? Because we have already imported system.console at the top, right, with the help of using a static directive. So we are allowed to write something like this: write line, read line, instead of writing console.write line, console.read line. So basically we are not going to repeat console and console again, right? Okay, let me execute this and see the output. Okay, so output got appear into this console window, and we are able to see demo using directive for creating an alias for a type, and that's the expected output, right? Using statements and using declaration. Here we'll see using statements and using declaration one by one. Using a statement. What does it mean by using a statement? The using a statement enables us to create the object as read only, along with managing its scopes, and ensures us this object would be destroyed automatically when its scope ends at the closing brace. In other words, we as a developer don't have to call dispose method explicitly. Compiler would be taking care of this internally. Let's try to understand it with the help of example. There is a class named demo resource that implements iDisposable interface. So it has to give implementation of dispose method. That's why implementation is provided over here. Public void dispose. Inside that I have just written console.writeLine disposing. This demo resource class has another method, add method, that accepts two input parameters, int a, int b, and then it perform addition operation and then return the result of the int data type. Okay, now there is a class program and that has main method. Inside main method I have used using a state. How we have written using a statement? First we need to write using keyword, and then we need to write opening and closing parenthesis, and inside that I need to create an object for that particular class that we are intended to create it. That's what I have written. Using demo resource obj is equal to new demo resource, and inside this method I have written console.writeLine result obj.add 510. Basically what I'm doing over here is I'm calling add method of the demo resource class with the help of object, right, and passing the parameters 5 and 10. And then outside of this using statement I have written another console.writeLine statement that basically it is going to print exiting text in the console window. Okay, and if you see the output over here, first result got printed. The result, how it got printed, is just call this add method, and whatever the result we are getting from this add method, we are printing those things via this console.writeLine statement, right? So that's what this result got printed over here. Next I'm seeing disposing. Why disposing got printed as a second line of a statement? Because at the end of the using statement there is a curly braces. Here itself dispose method of demo resource object is called, and that's what this method got called, and whatever the statement that we are intended to print it under this dispose method, and that's why it got printed disposing. And finally once using statements processing is done, then it came out and then it called this console.writeLine statement. That's what we are able to see the exiting text over here. Okay, now let's see the using declaration. What does it mean by the using declaration? The using declaration, which is introduced in C# 8.0, does not require braces. If you see here in this using a statement, we require braces, right? But if you see here in using declaration, we don't have braces over here, right? So that's what it says. The using declaration does not require braces. It calls the dispose method on the object in the correct way when it goes out of a scope, right? So, okay, let's understand it with the help of examples over here. There is a class named program. Inside that there is a main method which is an entry point of this particular application, and here we have used using declaration. And then we have created an instance of this demo resource. That's what I have written, using demo resource obj is equal to new demo resource. This is the line basically represent the using declaration, right? After that I have written this console.writeLine statement that basically calls add method. We are passing here 5 and 10 as a parameters, right? And then we have written this console.writeLine. If you see the output over here, first statement got printed result is equal to 50, because after using a statement we have written this line, right? And after that exiting got printed, console.writeLine exiting, right? And disposing is getting printed at the last line, right? Why? Because this scope is going to get ended at the curly braces of the main method. So dispose methods of the demo resource obj is called over here, and that's what once these two statement got printed, then dispose method got called, and then it is just printing this statement console.writeLine disposing, and that's what it got printed over here. Why I have given this sign over here? Because for this demo resource, I'm using in this using declaration examples. That's what I have written this arrow over here. Okay, if you see the output of the using statement, right here, result is equal to 15 disposing exiting, and the output of the using declaration example, result is equal to 15 exiting and disposing. If you notice here, disposing is coming at the second line of a statement, and here disposing is coming at the last line of a statement, right? So it simply depicts us the object created by the using declaration is having bigger lifetime compared to the object created by the using state. Okay, let's switch to the Visual Studio, see all these things in action. Okay, so here we are on Visual Studio. Here I'm going to show the demo of the using statement. Okay, so if you notice, I have created this class demo resource that implements iDisposable interface. Whenever we are implementing iDisposable interface, we need to provide the implementation of the dispose method. That's what I have written, public void dispose, and inside that I am just printing the disposing text into this console window via this console.writeLine. There is another method add that accepts two input parameters, int a, int b, perform addition operation and return the output of the int data type, right? So these two methods exist in demo resource class. Okay. Now there is another class program that has main method, which is an entry point of this particular application. I have just written these two console.writeLine statement because I'm just wanted to print demo of using a statement into this console window. Okay, in the next statement, I have written using a statement. For that, I have just written using keyword, then opening and closing parenthesis, and in between I have created an object of this demo resource class. That's what I have written, using demo resource obj is equal to new demo resource, and this curly bracket decide what is the scope of this particular object, right? Okay, and in between I'm just using this console.writeLine statement, print the output that we are going to retrieve it from this add method. This add method is nothing but this demo resource add method. We are just calling over here obj.add and passing this input parameters 5 and 10, so that we will be getting the output, and once the output receives, then we are going to print it into this console window. Okay, and next, after this using statement, I have written this console.writeLine statement, right? And in this I'm just printing exiting text on the console window. Okay, and if you notice, I have just put some breakpoint over there so that I can show you how the processing is going to happen. Let me execute this and see the result. Okay, if you notice, this is yellow color, right? Breakpoint comes over here. Let me click this F10 over here. I just click, then it's just going to print this demo of using a statement, then next statement, then it just going to create the object of this demo resource class, right? Now I just click F10, then it just enter into this first curly braces, then it just going to call this obj add method. Let me click this F10 again. So if you see here, this control comes over here in add method, right? This is the a is equal to 5, b is equal to 10, the value that it has received, right? Okay, now I just click this one and click this one, then it just perform addition operation, and then it is just going to the caller method itself. So this is the place where we have called this, though. Then the control comes over here, and then it just print this statement into this console, right? Console window, right? Now it just go and call this dispose method. Remember, if you saw over here, from this curly braces point, it just call the dispose method, right? And then it is just printing disposing into the console window, and it just processing finished. Then it came to the console.writeLine exiting state, right? Then it is just executed, and now if you see the output got appear into this console window, right? So demo of using a statement, result is equal to 15. After that, disposing got printed, at the end exiting got printed, right? So that's the way it is just going to get executed. So here we are on Visual Studio. We are going to see the demo of the using declaration. So this is the same class demo resource that implements site disposable interface. There are two methods. There is a class program that has main method, which is an entry point of this particular program. I have just written this console.writeLine statement that I'm giving the demo of the using. If you see the using declaration, I have just write this state, using demo resource obj is equal to new demo resource. Notice there is a no curly, right? And then I have just written this statement. Basically, just call this add method of the demo resource. We have passed these two parameters 5 and 10. Then I have just written this console.writeLine, which I am just printing this exiting text console, right? So now I have just put couple of the breakpoints so that we can see the flow, how that application is going to execute. Okay, let me execute this and see the processing. Okay, now see the control comes over here at this particular breakpoint. So let me click this F10. So console.writeLine, this statement is just going to get executed. Then next statement, then it is just going to create an object of this demo resource. This class got created, scope is defined. Okay, now just going to execute this console.writeLine, which I'm just calling this add method of, right? So it will go to the add method where we are going to receive this value of a is equal to 5, then b is equal to 10, right? Now we just need to go and click this 10. So it is just going to add these two values, a plus b, and then returning that value to the caller method, right? So this is the place where we have called this add method. Control again came back to this position, and then it is going to get printed into this console. Okay, now it control goes to the console.writeLine next stage. Then this exiting test is going to get printed into this console. If you see, it came at the position of the closing curly braces of the main method, right? Here basically this dispose method is going to get called automatically. We click this. Now if you notice, inside that dispose method control came, then it's just going to print this disposing, and we can see in this console window, right? So first this statement got printed, demo of using declaration, then result is equal to 15, exiting, and then disposing. You notice disposing is happening at the last and exiting is coming upper than that. So this object got created from the using declaration having the bigger lifetime compared to the object got created from the using state, right? So keep in mind these things. Using directive versus using statement versus using declarations. Here we are going to compare all these three. So using directive is used for importing types defined in other namespace or creating an alias for a namespace or a type. See the examples for importing types, how we are going to do that. We just need to write using system.text. We are going to create an alias for a type. We just need to write using sb is equal to system.text string. And if you see the variation of this using directive, we do have two variation, right? The first one is the using a static directive, which is introduced in C# 6.0 onwards, and we need to write something like this, using a static system.math, right? So and then we can call directly a static method simply, right? sqrt5, and then it will be give the output as a 25. If you see the examples of the global using directive, which is available in C# 10.0 onwards, we just need to write in one of the cs file global using system.text, right? And this type will be available throughout that particular application. And if you see the using statement, what does using statement does? The using statement enables us to create the object as read only along with managing its scope, and ensures us this object would be destroyed automatically when its scope ends at the closing braces. See the examples over here. First we need to write the using, and then parenthesis. In parenthesis we need to create an object, and this object will be the read only one. That is the first statement, this using statement. And it just says it managing it's how it is going to manage this scope. It is going to manage the scope via this curly braces, opening curly braces and closing curly braces. In between these two braces our scope will be there for this particular object, right? We can do something with this object in between, right? And the third statement, what says in using statement, it says this object would be destroyed automatically when its scope ends at the closing braces. If you see here in the closing braces, this dispose method of demo resource object is called over here. So basically it curly braces in using a statement, it ensures that this object is going to get destroyed by calling this dispose method, right? Whereas if you see the using declaration, it works similar to the using statement, except it does not require braces and calls the dispose method on the object in the correct way when it goes out of the scope. We just need to write like this, using demo resource object is equal to new demo resource. It will be doing the same thing, but we don't need to write the braces over here, and that's what you are able to see. There is no braces, right? Okay, if you see this using statement, it already exists before C# 8.0, whereas in using declaration it available from C# 8.0 onwards. So if you want to use using declaration, we need to use it in C# 8.0 onwards. In previous version we cannot write that, right? That things we need to keep in mind. The next, the object created by using statement gets disposed of early compared to the object created by using declaration. And if you see from the using declaration perspective, the object created by using declaration has bigger life compared to the object created by using a statement. We have already seen by the example, right, in the last slide. Guidelines and best practices. So here we are going to discuss the guidelines and best practices of using directive, using a statement, and using declaration. Number one, a using directive does not give us access to any namespaces that are nested in the namespace that we specify, right? For examples, if we are imported using system.text, here we can't use regular expression with the above import. We will have to import nested namespace regular expression of system.text as shown below. We need to write something like this using system.text.regular expression. Then only we can use this regular expression, right? So we need to keep in mind whenever that nested namespace we need to use, we need to import it, right? Like this. Okay, number two, we cannot use the alias for importing its nested namespace, right? For example, if you see here, using t is equal to system.text. Basically, we have uh, created an alias t for this system.text. And if you write something like this, using t.regular expression, so it will generate the compile time error. So we can't write like this, right? Keep in mind. Number three, the using statement or using declaration, the object that it instantiates must implement the system.I disposable interface. So object which is going to get created under this using statement and using declaration, it must implement the system.I disposable interface. So that is the requirement for this using statement and using declaration. Number four, C# 8.0 introduce using declaration. So it can be used from C# 8.0 onwards and not available in the previous version of C#, right? Number five, we should use using statement for longer methods and using declaration for shorter methods. Why we have written this statement? Because the object created by the using declaration has bigger lifetime compared to the object created by the using statement. So that's why we should use using statement for longer method and using declaration for shorter method. Number six, we can't use where if we instantiate more than one object by using a statement or using declaration, as we get compile time error. What error we are going to get it? We are going to get this error. Implicitly typed variables cannot have multiple declarators. So if you see the examples over here, if you're planning to instantiate more than one object at a time, right? So that is the correct way. And if you write something like this using where left is equal to new string reader numbers, right, new string reader leader, then that is the wrong way. And we will be getting compile time error. This one, implicitly typed variables cannot have multiple declarators. So this is the way we need to write in using statement, right? Similarly, for the using declaration, we need to follow the same rule. If you are intended to instantiate more than one object by using declaration, we will have to use concrete class, right, instead of where. So that's what we need to write using a string reader left is equal to new string reader number, right is equal to new string reader letters, right? So that's the correct way. If you write like this, using where left is equal to new string reader numbers, right is equal to new string reader letters, so that's the wrong way. And if you write something like this, then we will be getting implicitly typed variables cannot have multiple declarators. So for one we can use where, but if we are going to create more than one object, then we will have to give this concrete class. Now that brings me to end of my session. To sum up, in this video we saw what using directive in C# is and what its use cases. We also discussed modifier uses with using directives like using a static directive and global using directive. Then we discussed what using a statement and using declarations are and demonstrated with examples. Next, we compared all these three and finally talked about guidelines and best practices of these three: using directive, using a statement, and using declaration. Right? So hope by now you must have good understanding of using uses in C#. That's all for this video, guys. If you like this video, hit the like button, share it with your friends and colleagues, subscribe to my channel if you haven't done already. Thanks for watching. See you next video.